Okay. Good afternoon, Earthlings, and good afternoon to my beautiful eco-sisters. I hope you are all safe at your respective homes. And today, we're going to have a very interesting topic, and I, for myself, am very eager to learn about what our special guest speaker would say. But before that, just a quick recap. We had a discussion also about the tourism industry. I think that was Friday, if I'm not mistaken. And as we all know, that it's one of the industries that is highly impacted due to lessening the movement of people caused by this virus. So to those who missed that, it is still available on our official Facebook and YouTube page. That's Miss Philippines Earth. And to let everybody know, this is actually our last episode of the series What Matters. So to make it extra special, I want to ask my sisters naman this time on what matters most in their life, lalo ngayon na nasa pandemya tayo. It could be about how our family strengthens our faith or our realizations, or maybe what keeps our mental health strong. So in that way, maybe our viewers can learn a thing or two about that on a more personal note. So yes, my eco-sister Ate Patricia, do you have something to share?
Well, for me, I guess what matters when that phrase comes to mind, what immediately comes to my mind is family. Of course, I have always been very family centered, and I've always given much value to my family, especially nowadays that there is uh, a specific danger posed to the lives of our loved ones. And considering the fact that many people are losing their loved ones, in fact, a few days ago, a good friend of mine lost both her parents to this virus. And I cannot imagine watching one parent and then the other parent follow in succession. It's like 2 days apart. And I have to say that what really matters right now, nowadays, is our family, the people that we love, the people that we hold close to our hearts. So, for the sake of those people that we love, I hope that everybody would continue to make sure that they're following our safety protocols. At the end of the day, that is not only for ourselves, but really part of our civic duty to this country.
Wow, thank you, Ate Patricia. Unfortunately, Ate Gianna and Elisa couldn't join us today. We miss you, sisters. So ngayon naman, let's move kay Ate Shane.
Yes, good afternoon sa mga kalikasang hapon po sa inyong lahat. Well, Roxy, I have the same answer as with Patricia. What really matters right now and what strengthened my mental being right now is the support that I'm having for my family and most especially my friends. I think mas naging strong yung band ko. Ever since naman, I have a very strong bond with my family and with my circle of friends. But right now, I can feel that mas na-filter pa yung mga friends na mapagkakatiwalaan mo, most especially at this moment of time. Kasi aminin natin the reality is that some friends, you just have friends with them because you talk every day. Or some friends mo sila because you see each other every day. But this time, I think na-challenge yung bond na yun. Wherein na-filter mo pa na yung circle of friends mo. Meron pa parang mas circle na mas close. Wherein makakapag-open up ka ng mo, pwede kang fragile. So, importantly kahit nakikita ng tao that I'm very much an optimistic person, there are also times wherein na-feel ko na hahayak ka na. But I'm really glad that there's this support system behind me wherein yung mga friends ko wherein they're also experiencing clinical, meron silang depression and anxiety. Sila pa yung nakikita mo na nagbibigay sa'yo ng support. So, malaking bagay yun for me because hindi lang pala ako yung nakapagbigay ng support sa kanila, but this time wherein I need also that support that I've given to them before, na ibalik nila. So, ang saya-saya lang, it's like a domino effect. It's a ripple effect wherein you just keep on doing good things, be just kind to everybody because you don't know their stories then. So, eventually, at the right time that you need that kind of kindness, it will be given back to you. So yun lang din na gusto ko spread sa lahat. Keep on talking with your relatives, with your friends, communicate with them. That's the most important thing, how to deal with the things that you've been through dito sa pandemic na ito.
Wow. Well, as for me, it's quite similar to what you both said. It's more on not letting social distancing lead to emotional distance. So even if I
Yes.
lived alone the entire pandemic, I still reach out to my family, let them know how I feel. Kasi if you keep it all in, di ba, baka sumabog ka na lang na, alam mo yun.
Yes.
Kaya don't be, everybody out there, don't be scared to vent out your emotions, mostly to people who unconditionally loves you. Meron yung family, yung friends mo, hindi nila ipapafeel sa'yo na mag-isa ka, mostly at a time like this pandemic. So there's that, and I also have my fish, my rabbit, my cats, my dogs, who keep me genuinely happy. As for my realizations naman, I learned to value more important things this time, underrated blessings such as having good health and relationships. Tapos, in a world that blinds us with fame, with fortune, with greed, I hope we do not forget what really matters in life. And everybody watching, don't forget to be kind sa sarili mo kasi yun yung pinakamahalaga. And with that, be kind to others as well. If there's one thing that could heal us, it is definitely love and faith. Ayan. So, the long wait is over. Now, we are going to introduce our very special guest. And to our viewers, feel free to ask some questions. This is your chance kasi sobrang special talaga ng guest natin for today. So, eto na siya. He is a CPA, a lawyer, a capital markets professional, wow, and a professor of law, the Chief Operating Officer and Senior Vice President of the Philippine Stock Exchange. Welcome, Attorney Roel Refran.
If you're on mute po.
Ayan.
Everyone, I'm
Hi, sir.
to be spending the afternoon with you on a topic that, as you mentioned, is most relevant.
Thank you, sir, for joining us today. We're glad to have you po.
Thank you.
Yes, sir, do you have some words for our viewers? I'm sure they're very excited to learn about the economic situation amidst this pandemic po.
Oh, sure. I have a brief presentation that I'd like to share so that, when we go into the details, at the end of the day, it sounds so, there's a lot of factors that are in play. Some are controllable, some are not controllable. So I think whenever we have discussions like this, pag-usapan natin, ano ba talaga yung facts? Kasi pag puro na lang punto de vista, puro na lang haka-haka, siguro balikan natin yung facts muna bago natin.
Okay.
So allow me to share my presentation, which I will, let me just continue. Okay, so it's really about the state of our economy during, I must say, unprecedented times. And this is something that we are all unprepared for. But nevertheless, as they say, the show must go on, no, in any event. And therefore, what has happened really is walang na-spare, no, na bansa, walang na-spare na ekonomiya. Kung makikita natin dito, we were down for the second quarter 16.5%. Ito ho yung GDP natin. This is the amount of goods and services that is being produced in our economy. But lagi namang sinasabi natin is everything will be relative. Para lang yung beauty contest na you compare and you evaluate each candidate amongst the universe and tingnan mo yung other candidates. But in this context also, if you would see, our neighboring countries are also badly hit. You have Singapore, you have Thailand. Of course, in Europe, it's really bad, no? Of course, the US as well. And even a giant like Japan has been really badly hit. So for the year, the economic forecast is the world will just grow by negative 4.9%. Just to give you context, the previous year, the world was growing at around 3.5 to 4%. That's positive. But for this year, it will be obviously a general downtrend. So it's going to go down by 4.9% in the global economy. So ano hong ibig sabihin nito? Ito yung sinasabi nating recession. Recession is when you have two continuous quarters that you are in negative territory. First quarter, we were down. And then second quarter, as expected, which is the belly of the beast, di ba? this is the ECQ times the second quarter, we were down by 16.5%, as you could see, right? So we are technically in a recession, and this is something that is far worse than the global financial crisis. And that was in 2008, as well as the Asian financial crisis in 1997, right? So you might think cycles, every so many years nagkakaroon ng crisis, but this time around, it's a different crisis because the precursor was a health pandemic. It was not an economic fallout. It was not excesses in terms of the market participants, but really, this is something that was brought about by a global health crisis, right? So the economy has been growing, by the way, steadily since 2011, no? Which is good for everyone. Since 9 years ago, we have been up and up, except that this has to happen. And so what that means is that the economy also impacts unemployment, right? Marami ho tayong narinig, ano ba yung unemployment rate? The official number is, well, roughly more than 7 million Filipinos are unemployed. Our unemployment rate is very high, no, at 17.7%, right? Pag tinignan ho natin yung America, wow, they're also in the 18, 19%. No? In the US, ang daming nawalan ng trabaho. And in the Philippines as well, you're looking at 7.25 million Filipinos na walang trabaho. Okay? Now, tingnan naman natin yung mga sectors. No? Number one, the manufacturing sector. Right? And obviously, the second quarter numbers for the manufacturing sector reflect the downtrend that we have seen across industries. No? Different industries, all of them were badly hit. Manufacturing sectors, for the first time, no, nag-double digit tayo down, 21.3% in terms of yung output ng manufacturing sector, right? And you also look at other metrics, it's also consistent, no, with the recession. Now, tingnan naman natin yung external trade performance, right? Obviously, it was also badly impacted in terms of the exports, right? When you have businesses that were closed because of the lockdown, then you have people not going to work, and so the factories would not produce, and obviously also the orders coming from abroad would not be forthcoming because they also are dealing with their own health crisis. No? So the exports natin for end of June was down by almost 18%. Can you imagine that? And we are a big exporter of electronics, no? And roughly there is a contraction of 14.9%. So all these numbers just reflect whether it's exports, even on the import side, you see that really there is a slowdown in these sectors of our economy. Okay? Now, going back, even in terms of tourism, by the way, no, there are no foreign tourism revenues since April, right? Because international flights were shut down, right? Our health pandemic also, people would defer their plans to go on vacation to our beautiful tourist destinations, right? And so there are no tourist arrivals. And that's one side of the story. Now, siguro this is something that is very much important as well. Yung mga pinapadala ng ating mga kababayan abroad, ang tawag natin dito is yung overseas Filipino worker remittances. No? Any given year, this accounts for 10% of our economy. Ganong kalaki ang ating pondo na nanggagaling sa abroad from our kababayans working abroad. Now, what happened here is that we're also looking at 4-year lows, as we have seen, because obviously they are also either disrupted sa kanilang mga trabaho abroad, or they are also holding on to cash because during liquidity, during crisis, ang rule of thumb lagi natin is hold on to your cash because cash will help you for emergency measures, emergency situations, right? So both on the visitors, international visitors, as well as on the funds being given to us by our kababayans, talagang tinamaan tayo because of the pandemic. Now, this presents to us the biggest and the I would say the most actively traded companies in our economy. Right now, I can enumerate all of them, but I just want to say that there is a drop effectively. No, if you look at the most representative companies, the biggest, there's a drop of roughly around 58% revenues, net income, year to date, meaning for the first 8 months of the year. Right? So that's a very telling story because no one was spared. Hindi lang yung maliliit na companies, but also the more established companies. Okay? Of course, in a crisis, we could ill afford bad news because it is already bad as it is, but we also have to deal with the news about our health insurance agency being embroiled in a scandal. And I sincerely hope that this is properly addressed because this is a mandatory contribution from all the workers. Nakakaltasan ho tayo ng contribution sa PhilHealth at yan po meron din pong contribution yung iyong employer. Right? So this is a very important issue that has to be resolved. And I think this is, as of now, still ongoing. Right? Okay. Pagka meron tayong crisis, there are different ways to fund what you would call measures in order to stimulate the economy. Right? Wala ho itong pinagkaiba noong 2008. Nagkaroon tayo ng global financial crisis. Different economies needed what's called the pump priming measure. Yan yung mga stimulus packages. What that means is you are providing liquidity, cash to the people, to the corporates, to the businesses, hoping that they would be able to stand up on their own 2 feet as soon as possible. That's one story. Now, tingnan naman natin yung utang ng bansa natin because we are also very mindful of our external indebtedness. No? Indebtedness being internal as well as external. Now, yung total niyan is what we call our total national government debt. Mga pagkakautang. Bakit nangungutang ang gobyerno? Sapagkat mababa ang interest ngayon. So, napakaganda ring pagkakataon para yung gobyerno mangutang hindi lamang sa mga investors but also to the from the big corporates, right? Yung ating national government debt for June is up by 17% from December of last year, right? In terms of peso figures, that's 9 trillion pesos. Medyo malaki. Ang ating GDP sa ekonomiya is roughly 17 to 18 trillion pesos. So yung ating pagkakautang, 12 to 9 trillion ang ating existing outstanding debts, utang ng gobyerno, right? Now, 68% noong 9 trillion na yan is inutang from domestic sources, right? Ang nangungutang kasi is nag-i-issue yung gobyerno ng mga treasury bills, treasury bonds. So yung mga ating kababayan, yung mga companies na meron silang excess cash, they invest because these are risk-free securities. Babayaran ng gobyerno. The government does not default sa pagkakautang niya. Therefore, there are corporates, a certain percentage of another important factor. No? Another one is, as a percentage of GDP, last year, we were looking at 36% of the GDP accounted for by the government debt. For the longest time, that has been a very good fiscal management, I would say, strategy by our policymakers. Dati mataas yan. Pandemic hits us and well, tataas pa yan, yung government debt as a percentage of GDP. Now, we have to repay that at some point. No? The debt is something that is not free money. You have to repay that. So, lahat tayo, we are very much, should be concerned about rising levels of government debt. Although right now, it's still within our means. No? Yung ibang bansa, more than 100% ang utang nila ng kanilang ekonomiya. Right? You saw that in the cases of Greece before, 150-200% ang levels ng utang. We are not in that category. So we're still very well managed in terms of our borrowings. No? Para lang huyang tao, huwag kang mangutang ng mangutang kung hindi mo mababayaran. So it's a very important cash management process because at the end of the day, ayaw mo mag-default sapagkat marami yung penalties that will be triggered kapag nag-default ka sa utang. Okay, and year to date, the domestic borrowing has already reached 1.68 trillion pesos. Maraming sources yan, but at the end of the day, the government is very active. No? It continues to float treasury bonds, treasury notes. Ito ho yung mga investment securities, mababa lang yung interest because talaga namang mababa ngayon. No? Siguro ang isang 1-year treasury note, you will be paid 2%, 2% interest income. kung ikaw ay nagpautang sa gobyerno. And that is something that is already reflective of the low interest environment, no, in our economy. Okay. Now, tingnan naman natin yung iba pang indicators. No? When you talk about the economy, look at indicators. Inflation. Ano ba? When you say inflation, today compared to last year, yung 1 peso ko ba can still buy the equivalent of the 1 peso purchases last year, right? So, yung ating inflation rate, yung pagtaas ng mga bilihin, is at a very benign number. No? We're doing 2.7% inflation, right? And expectation is below 3% yan, even up to next year, right? So that's important. Interest rates are low. Ang ibig sabihin, ano ang magiging repercussion when interest rates are low? Companies will be incentivized to borrow money from the banks because interest rates are low. It's technically free money, right? Your inflation rate is at 2 to 3%. If your interest rate is around that number, technically that's a very good signal for you to consider borrowing funds, provided that you can pay your indebtedness, right? Now, the lower right-hand side of the screen, I would like to say that our financial institutions, especially our banks, are very well positioned to withstand and to survive this crisis. Why am I saying that? There are metrics, especially the capital adequacy ratio, where you'd see that it's a very healthy percentage that they could withstand liquidity shocks. Kapag biglang marami nag-withdraw ng kanilang pera sa bangko, may pondo yung mga bangko to give you your money, right? And it's a very healthy financial system sapagkat marami na tayong pinagdaanan, marami na tayong crisis where the banks were left to be less than ready for the crisis. But this time around, that's not our story. This time, banks are well positioned and capitalized for credit growth as well as the shocks that are expected. Okay, ito pa, napaka-importante. Kumusta ba ang peso-dollar exchange rate? Napakaganda ng ating performance, no? We are right now, as of last week, we were doing 48.5 pesos for $1 and I think that has been steady. In fact, we are the best performing currency in Asia this year, right? We have appreciated, our peso has appreciated. Ibig sabihin for $1, mas konti ng Philippine pesos ang pampalit mo. So that's good and bad lagi. Appreciation of the Philippine currency is sometimes good depending on who you talk to, and also not so good for those who are exporting, right? Kung ikaw exporter, when you export, you are being paid US dollars. Kung mataas yung palitan, pag kinonvert mo yan sa bangko, mas marami kang Philippine pesos. Pero yung importers naman, mas gusto nilang mas strong yung Philippine peso sapagkat mas konting pesos ang kanilang kailangang ilabas para mabili nila yung equivalent in US dollars, right? So it's also a function of the US dollar as a currency weakening. And this is not just because of the pandemic. Even last year and the years before, we have seen a gradual weakening of the US dollar as a world currency, right? But at the end of the day, this is a positive signal. Mas malakas ho yung ating Philippine peso. And this is also partly because yung ating mga professionals in the central bank are very good at monetary policy. They're able to manage a lot of risk in terms of the Philippine peso, no? For purposes of the currency risk. Okay, what about next year? Sabi nila for 2020, there's a singular goal. Let's survive this year. Let's forget about all your high potential, high growth strategies. Our simplistic goal is to survive and then bawi tayo next year. Well, we're saying that in terms of 2021, of course, these are all just views expressed by some professionals, no? Given that our real GDP growth has been what we have seen so far, they're saying that by end of 2020, we will be down 8.3%, right? Negative 8.3%. Remember last year, we were up 6%, and the years before that, much higher. So negative 8% when the world is growing negative 4.5%, as we learned a while ago, it's not so bad, no? It could be worse. If you look at inflation, yung mga tao walang trabaho, kung meron man, kulang pambili. Pag tumaas pa yung presyo ng bilihin, talaga namang babaluktot na sila sa kumot, di ba? Sabi nga, no? They will really feel the crunch. But because inflation management also has been very effective by our monetary authorities, for this year, we're looking at below 3% inflation. So not so painful for our kababayans. Even next year, we're looking at a 3% inflation target for the government, right? And hopefully, if the Philippine peso strengthens to maybe they see maybe 50:1, but still compared to last year at 51.8, that's still a very strong peso compared to the previous years. No? So effectiveness of the country's response to the pandemic will also be a key factor as outside of this to a successful recovery. Why is that? Marami yung hindi na makakapag-antay ng next year. Wala na silang trabaho. We need money now. They need help from the government now. Kaya nga marami rin ginagawa ang gobyerno in terms of measures like the Bayanihan to Heal as One Act. Siguro ito narinig na natin. Essentially, this is a pump priming measure to infuse cash into sectors of the economy that needed the cash, right? While lahat ho tinamaan noong pandemic, not all are on the same footing. Some are really badly hit because their sectors are really those which were front of center affected. No? So for example, merong mga social amelioration program, SAP, nagkaroon na ho for the first tranche, that's a total of 102.8 billion pesos given by the government. And there's also 45 billion pesos already given subsidies for purposes of those what that we call entitled to the subsidy because they're in the small business wage subsidy program. Okay? Nandyan din ho yung mga binibigay ng national government to the local governments. Remember, the local governments, they get an internal revenue allotment from the national government. So, nandito rin ho yung mga relief assistance because it's really the local government that also is tasked to manage. This is a health crisis. No? So, the pandemic has to be managed at a granular level. Hindi naman pwedeng napakalayo to the action. That's why the LGUs are in need of support from the government as well. Nandito ho yung contact tracing teams, contact tracing program. Is you need funds to contact trace. No? You need people to help you. And the number of tests that will be conducted is also correlated to the number of cases that you can accurately capture. No? Sometimes you say it's small because you're not engaged in an active test campaign. So the more tests, that naturally you hope that it will not increase exponentially. But the fact of the matter is it's a must-have. It is not an option. We really have to conduct all this testing. And so all of these are contained in the Bayanihan to Heal as One Act. And then there is a part 2 of that, the Bayanihan to Heal Part 2. Inaantay na lang ho nito ang pirma ng ating presidente. Pasado na to sa Kongreso. But essentially what it is actually also giving more subsidies and stimulus programs to different sectors. Tourism is going to get 4 billion pesos. The education sector, marami ho tayong mga estudyante, mga guro, at mga eskwelahan in general badly hit. There have been schools that have to close simply because they cannot support an online learning program. And there's also 7.9 billion pesos under the Bayanihan to Heal as One Act Part 2 that will be allocated for the education sector. Transport sector is actually badly hit as well, right? Our jeepneys, our buses, the PUV drivers, right? Marami ho silang nawalan ng trabaho because under different lockdown scenarios, walang public transport. So there's actually 5.6 billion pesos that will be used to assist displaced public utility vehicle drivers. That's a lot of money as well. And there's also going to be a continuation of the SAP, the Social Amelioration Program, 5,000 pesos to 8,000 pesos cash subsidy. Ito po is really going to be given to the Filipinos entitled to it because they are in the low income bracket. Okay, so this is still not yet signed by our president, but I imagine that this will be maybe in the coming weeks signed into law. Okay, and there's also other measures that are pending to hopefully make it more bearable for companies. Now, there's this measure to bring down corporate income tax from 30 to 25%. And this is still up in Congress, hindi pa ho ito pasado sa Congress. Okay. Now, that's a real economy. In the stock market, what we're seeing is it's really moving in tandem with the economy, right? While we have seen that there is a drop also in the stock market, simply because the ECQ affected the real economy, and the real economy players are the biggest and the brightest are listed in the stock market. So that's also to be expected. The next question is, when you're down and out, how soon can you get back? Right? Sabi nila, when you're the measure of you being resilient is how fast you're able to go back up. And look, I just wanted to share with you different points in our history. 97 financial crisis. In 2000, there was the tech bubble. In 2008, this was again the global financial crisis. And this time around, 12 years later, is the pandemic. No? And we have seen that it takes, on average, more than 20 months, although in the global financial crisis, before the markets have gone back up, right? More than 20 months. No? Now, how does that compare with respect to all-time lows? If you look at recovering from all-time lows, it's longer. It takes, in fact, in the 97 financial crisis, it took us 5 years to recover, right? And when recovery, meaning from the time you are lowest, how soon were you able to go back up to the point where you were high before you hit the bottom? And well, on average, it takes us around 46 months to recover. This time around, we don't know because there's still no vaccine. This is a crisis. This is a health crisis. We don't know how long it will take. And at the end of the day, what people are saying, just to close, all things considered, is the worst over. Tapos na ba tayo dun sa pinaka mahirap na punto ng ating recession? Well, some people are saying we are not yet out of the woods. Governor Jokno of the central bank said that, although he feels the worst is over. And people are saying it's going to be difficult to say that because until and unless there's a vaccine, this is a health crisis. So, the health crisis happened before the impact on the economy. It's not the other way around. Therefore, the solution will come from the health sector. There has to be a vaccine first. Because before that happens, we will still be governed by all these constraints with respect to our operations, with respect to industries. Restaurants cannot operate at full capacity. The malls cannot also operate at full capacity. Your transport sector, lahat ho affected. Right? So the solution has to come from the health professionals. And so there's now a race for the first vaccine. I'm sure you have heard of developments, but they say it takes on average 1.5 to 2 years. I am not in the medical field, but it's going to take long. And I think this is where it goes to. Tayo hong mga Pilipino, we have to assume the worst. If we have a job, pasalamat tayo, we're blessed. Therefore, we have to hold on to our cash reserves because you don't know what's going to happen. Marami hong nawawalan ng trabaho. Doon naman sa mga apektado na wala ng trabaho, meron namang programa yung bansa natin, yung ating gobyerno. Of course, it's just going to be a wherewithal just to tide you over this crisis, hopefully. Some people say kulang pa, no? Pag binigyan ka ng 5,000 to 8,000, that's not gonna last you for a month or so, right? Depending on your lifestyle, depending on your needs. Therefore, at the end of the day, I think pag-usapan din natin ano pa ba yung measures, and I think our economy is, in terms of the macroeconomic fundamentals, we are in good stead. Hindi tayo kasing sama ng ibang bansa. But at the end of the day, tumataas yung ating utang. And this is a function also of the government borrowing to finance certain programs. And I think pare-parehas tayo. This is the great equalizer. Walang mayaman, walang mahirap. Lahat pwedeng magkasakit. Therefore, it's really up to us also to manage our own households because if at the micro level we're able to manage it, then the ripple effect to the economy will somehow also be managed. So that in essence is what's happening in our economy. I know it's a mouthful, but I think it's good also to contextualize everything so that we also have a good idea so that we know how we can move forward.
Wow, thank you for that information, attorney. It's really shocking seeing the numbers, and my heart goes out to those who are most affected, such as what attorney said earlier, the tourism industry, the education, agriculture. And I couldn't imagine also business owners who are forced to let go of some employees. Imagine letting go of those loyal employees for the reason that you cannot sustain your business already. So what more for your employees? And I actually wanted to share, I've met a friend of mine the other day, and she kept telling me that I hope they would earn enough, not for her anymore, not for the business owner, but for her employees kasi ayaw niya talaga magbawas ng kasamahan. And it's true, when the numbers started increasing in this COVID-19, of the cases of this COVID-19 virus, we braced ourselves for a severe economic downturn with the restrictions of movement of people. Mahirap talaga na ituloy yung mga livelihoods natin, of course, because our safety is more prioritized. So resources are stretched, government calamity funds have been spent, and according to Manila Bulletin, our economy status is showing weaker performance compared to the past 2 decades. But despite that, I hope that as we grieve our losses, let us not forget to dream new images. And sabi nga nila, let's heal as one. So together, let us keep the faith. As Attorney said, we will get through this. So I think my eco-sister, sir, has a couple of questions for you, if you don't mind. Okay, first off is Ate Shane.
Hi, Attorney Roel.
I think
Sir, actually, yung mom ko kasi graduate siya ng economics, pero never ako naging interested talaga about economics kasi ang dami-daming detalye. Well, thank you so much because you've made me understand the things that matters sa economy natin at this moment. And I'm really glad I was able to identify na, ito pala yun. Thank you so much for that, sir, that wonderful and amazing information. Na-summarize niya kasi, kaya na-amaze ako, napangiti-ngiti ako eh. But sir, I'm really interested about asking this question. You have mentioned that a lot of sectors were affected. Tourism industry. Aminin naman natin, sir, there's an industry naman, sir, na may rapid growth, which is e-commerce, if I'm not mistaken. Actually, ito yung bubuhay din sa atin ngayon kasi maraming tao ngayon nag-online shopping, mas iniintindi nila yung health nila and safety nila. But sir, I'm just curious. Which sectors of the economy would you think likely to recover the fastest, and which sector naman ang slowest?
wow, that's a tough question because you're right. The sectors that are able to shift to the online fintech model are those that are able to really take advantage of the opportunities. No?
Yes.
So, for example, you cannot just say that just because the government allows the opening, let's say, of the malls, but if people are not gonna go there because they fear for the worst, then that's also going to affect the sales of the stalls inside the malls. No? So, ang worst hit talaga very clear would be the airline companies. Talagang sa pool tourism-related hotels are really hardest hit. Of course, the manufacturing sector is also hard hit because it's a function also of demand going weak, becoming weaker, right? Now, the resilient sectors, I would say, although may catch, is the financial institutions, the banks. Resilient sila because they have strong assets. Ang catch ko kasi dito, yung mga pautang nila, baka mag-default yung mga nangutang. Ito yung tawag nila, Shane, is the non-performing loans, the NPL. Now, for the longest time, yung NPL ratios natin, na-manage natin yan. Back in early 2000, that was in double digit. So the government came up with measures to bring that down to single digits of 4 to 5%. So now, the fear is that baka mag-double digit uli. Ang ibig sabihin kasi niyan, pag hindi nabayaran yung mga bangko, then it will also affect their financial performance, right? So that's the catch. I think there will be programs to manage that if that happens, no? Yung non-performing loans becoming double digit again, although right now it's easily at 5%, no? Our non-performing loan ratio. So strong naman yung banks natin. Obviously, the sectors in our economy, the BPO, marami hong mga nagtatao sa BPO. I'll tell you, there are BPOs that were able to pivot because they devoted the capital so that their employees can work from home. Hindi lang kasi yun pwedeng ordinary internet, ordinary connection. So they had to spend for that so that their economies are home and uninterrupted yung service to their clients. Remember, our BPOs service global clients, right? So I think the BPO sector to a large extent were able to transition, but it required them to dedicate cash resources for purposes of the mahalang computer, right? And the computer that they have to use is not the low capacity computers. And of course, the connectivity, the internet bandwidth, right? So BPO is important. Resilient yan yung BPO sector natin. And I think in general, our economy kasi is 75% consumer driven. So consumption is what turns the wheels of the economy. Ang consumption means people are not saving. That's the psychology of Filipinos. When the going gets rough, anong kasabihan? The Filipinos go shopping, right?
Yes.
Filipinos go shopping. But this time around, that saying will not hold because people may do online shopping. Kaya makita natin may mga uptick. Even the Grab drivers are having increased activity simply because people want comfort and want safety, right? So maraming sectors, in summary, Shane, those that can pivot and can adapt, meaning they have resources to go off online instead of face-to-face, will be those that could fare better. Walang kasiguruhan, but they have better chances of recovering. The big question is, kailan yung recovery? And until walang vaccine, we are all just really guessing here.
Yes.
As long as the vaccine is not yet there.
It's a waiting. Talagang waiting time for us. Sir, nakarelate ako dun sa sinabi mo na consumer-driven tayo. This is funny ha. I hope that no one will be offended. Nung na-receive daw yung ayuda, may mga nakita lang ko minsan, instant bili ng food. Everyone goes shopping. Yung iba nagpasalon pa. Talagang mga Pinoy talaga eh.
Nagpa-ribbon.
Yes, nagpa-ribbon. So, another interesting question, sir. You've mentioned dun sa talk niyo po kanina na ang gobyerno natin, nangungutang tayo ngayon kasi mababang interest. Eto, curious lang din ako, how do we pay for all the government spending? Paano natin babayaran lahat yun?
Right. So that's fiscal management, no? Our government has internally generated taxes. Meron naman tayong fees na nakokolekta taon-taon. So that's very important, no? Kasi this is the revenues will fund the Build program, the infrastructure program, at saka bayad ng mga utang. So para lang sa tao, yung mga pagkakautang ng ating gobyerno, iba-iba ho ang maturity period. Hindi naman pwedeng isang taon lahat magmamature. So that's also what they call cash management, no? So magagaling naman yung ating mga nasa Bureau of Treasury, no? Si National Treasurer Rosalina De Leon is very good. So they're able to manage that. In short, Shane, tayo rin na magbabayad ng mga utang na yan. Whether in the taxes natin tumanggap tayo ng salary, di ba may na-withhold na? Yung withholding na yun, na yun. Automatic yun.
Okay.
And kung ikaw may negosyo, hopefully nagbabayad ng taxes yung mga may negosyo, then that also goes directly to the government, right? So hopefully, siguro sabihin ko na lang, sana ang goal is our indebtedness will not be paid by another indebtedness. Because there was a time in our history na tayo ay nagbabayad ng utang sa pamamagitan ng mangungutang ulit.
Mangutang din, yes.
It's a cycle that is not sound fiscal management, right? At the corporate level or even on an economic level sa national government.
Buti na hindi ako mahilig mangutang. Last question po, attorney. With all the things that we've talked to, lahat po na minention out niya ng information, ito, very interesting to. How the Philippines economy will be like after this pandemic?
Oh, wow. We will not be the way we were before. They say there is no point in going back to our old ways if there's a better way. I think the online economy will go strong and really allow our economy to rebound. Remember, Filipinos love their phones. Filipinos, you know that the ratio of, we have 105, 104 million Filipinos. It's not 1:1. It's more than 1:1, almost 2:1. For every Filipino, they have 2 phones. And that presents a lot of opportunities, hindi lang sa banking sector, but also allows a lot for trade purposes and for business. People go to Facebook. People have different accounts with respect to marketing their products and services. And I would always say, even for you as professionals, you will also be able to tap the power of the internet to be able to reach out to your stakeholders, right? Hindi na ngayon face-to-face. It's more a function now how efficient, how effective are you in marketing yourself. And we have seen this already happen even in the media space, right? Nagsarado yung ABS-CBN now, they're going online. The actors and the actors are now tapping that medium. It's a very wide medium, by the way. The next question lang is the internet bandwidth, the capacity. Because as far as we're concerned, if internet is low, people get bored and it's buffering, it's taking time to download, right? But what I'm saying is, how will we be after this? I think our fiscal position, pag sinabi kasi ng fiscal position, meron ba tayong gagastusin pambayad sa mga kailangan nating gawin, yung infrastructure build, is still very stable. We are actually a net lender already as a country. Hindi naman tayo net borrower. Tayo pa yung nagpapautang. So this pandemic will not reverse that. That's decades in the making, our financial position now. And while we are badly hit, it will not bring us down to our knees. We can still stand up. Now, it's just a question of yung 17-18% na walang trabaho. My heart goes out to them, as sabi nga ni Roxy, no? Because they have 4 or 5 people to feed. Yung bawat magulang na nawalan ng trabaho, the multiplier effect is not 1:1, di ba? Multiply by 5, multiply by 4. That's so many people that need help. And I think the businesses, the small businesses, do a lot. In the provinces, for instance, marami nagsara. And pag sila ang nagsara, mas maraming multiplier effect, marami nawawalan ng work. People will not go to Metro Manila all at the same time because, cost of living is high and all that. So people need a very proximate source of livelihood, yung malapit sa inyong mga barrio, sa inyong mga barangay, right? And that's why the push of the government is to help strengthen yung mga micro, small, and medium enterprises also. So Shane, that's the key here. The empowerment has to start at the micro, small, medium enterprises level. Sabi nga nila, di ba, you teach man to fish, then he could feed his family. If you just give him fish, then it's just going to be a short-term advantage for him.
Wow, thank you so much, Sir Roel. Your words gave me that high hopes in my heart talaga na we can surpass this. Lahat naman tayo we are experiencing the same parang wavelengths nung dinala ng pandemic. And I think ang masasabi ko na lang and masashare ko sa mga viewers natin ngayon is that one thing that I've learned then during the pandemic is to save. Talagang mag-save, insurance as well, and to maximize the resources and the skills that I have right now para makapag-earn ng money. Kasi lahat ng pera ngayon, palabas lahat. And dahil marami sabi nga po, attorney, nabasa ko, it's not so 7 million, but sabi nila na foresee nila it's around 10 million will lose their jobs for this year, 2020. And I hope hindi na mangyari yun. So, kailangan na lang natin ngayon is that kahit may unting matirang pera, i-save pa rin natin yun. Huwag tayong ubos-ubos biyaya kasi ang mga Pinoy, mahilig yan, magumastos talaga. We are consumer-driven nga sa country. I hope that we will learn to save, insure ourselves para sa future natin. Kung gusto pa natin umabot ng 2021, 2022, ako, in high hopes pa rin ako na at least na-enlighten ako with your words. Sir Roel, thank you so much for answering all of my questions. I'm giving now the screen to Roxy and of course to Patrick. I'm sure they have a lot of questions pa sa inyo. Thank you po, sir.
Thank you.
Wow, those are really amazing words from both attorney and Ate Shane, and natamaan ako dun sa magastos lalo sa online shopping. And yes, before we move on, can I just say po, Attorney Roel, my dad is a big fan. He has this obsession for stock exchange.
Oh, wow.
Well, he's European and he always has this, he always feels that he has this need to always stay updated. So, yes po.
Hi to your dad.
He'd be so happy. Thank you, sir. And unfortunately, Miss Earthwater could not join us today, but she left me some questions and I'm going to ask them to you, sir. So this is her first question. Can you elaborate on why supporting local and embracing small businesses is so important during this time?
Ang ganda ng tanong niya, Roxy. It's simply because the national government will rely on the LGUs and the LGUs naman are the first touch point ng mga local business people. No? It's important because of the multiplier effect in terms of employment generation. So if the local entrepreneurs are able to have a business that is suitable and that is viable, marami silang nabibigyan ng trabaho. As well, they're able to hopefully give jobs that are more meaningful simply because pag nagtayo sila in a particular locality, they will get from the population nearby. Kasi di ba, minsan yung transportation is an issue, hindi reachable na mga public transport. So, yung mga tao na malapit ang kukunin nila. So, it's the jobs generation. And ultimately, out of all the registered companies in the Philippines, would you believe it's 99.9% are medium small enterprises? Very few lang yung malalaki. So, that is really the story of the Philippines. It's the micro and the small entrepreneurs. So if they are the ones that we're able to help, so anong sabi natin? Support the local. Pag meron tayong nakita na foreign versus local, bili na lang tayo ng local because you're helping and pump priming the economy that way. No? So always say, like for example, simple masks. Meron tayong mga local weavers that they sell masks, right? Compared to the mask sourced from abroad. I think that's something that we could also do on the short-term basis, Roxy.
Wow, thank you, sir. As Ate Shane always says, support local,
Support
buy
local, buy local.
Favorite ko yun. As for her second, yes. As for her second question po, we've recently plunged into recession. So what are ways that the general public can contribute to boosting the country's economy again?
Oh, good. So it's really, as the government also is saying, we are not yet back to normal, but we are already in GCQ. So there's also that message from the government that it's a little bit depending on your risk profile. You may want to go back into your offices, no? And when you go back to the offices, then you're also tapping the services available, the public sector, and you will have to eat. Some have baon in the office. That's, by the way, one way of also conserving your cash, no? But some purchase for one reason or another. So you see, they buy fast food, they purchase from all these stores as well. Then consumption talaga eh. Like what I mentioned, sabi nga ni Shane, it's really consumption driven talaga. 70% of our economy. So once that consumer sector picks up, then that will also help our economy pick up. No? Now it's a question na lang, why will they consume and how kung wala silang trabaho? Right? So that's why the employment generation aspect that you mentioned on the local entrepreneurs is also very important. But the reality is there will be layoffs. Sapagkat sa batas, an employer is allowed to lay off people if there are financial difficulties, right? That are real, that are not imagined. So a lot of businesses will always say, I lay you off, but once the economy improves, you will be first in line. Nasa database na kita, una kitang kukontakin. Right? So, and I think Filipinos have already established relationships with their employers so that when people say that, I hope that will also come true. So that's one way also of recovering, simply because while we are not going back to the pre-COVID days anymore, I hope that the best is still ahead of us. While the worst, people may debate, is not yet done, not yet over, but I'd always say the best is still ahead of us.
Wow, I really like the positivity, sir, kasi we're being surrounded with so much negativity, and it's really nice to hear those words from a very respected person in the industry. So as they say, it is a matter of survival. So hold on, lahat ng mga kababayan natin, at maging masinop, tama ba yung term? Masinop. We'll see at a time like this pandemic. So I think also... Yes, I think our Miss Philippines Air also has a few questions for Attorney Roel Refran.
Hello po, Attorney Ruel. I have to say that listening to you really relieved me. That's the general feeling that went through my mind because the past few weeks have been very negative, especially with regards to our economy. Left and right, we've been bombarded with a lot of headlines telling us that our country is making utang left and right, and a lot of people are reacting. How are we going to pay? Are we going to be the next Greece? A lot of people have been discussing, is this the next Great Depression? In fact, I've been able to hear a lot of discussions about calling this situation as the pandemic depression. And knowing what happened years ago, we know that is something that we should be scared of. And also considering that we are all really, at the mercy of a vaccine, which, and I agree with what you said, that it's really very positive thinking to think that it would take 2 to 3 years. In fact, the fastest vaccine that was ever developed is the mumps vaccine, the recent one, which was developed within 5 years. And at that, I can really say that listening to you, a figure from the Philippine Stock Exchange, really relieved a lot of the lingering questions. In fact, a lot of those questions, actually the questions I have with me were already substantially answered by a lot of the questions also posed to you, Attorney Ruel. So I guess for the most part, my question now would be, because I've read something about the Philippines. The Philippines already has this large stimulus package ready to roll out in a few days, and a lot of banks or economic business communities have been commenting that the package we have now lacks green stimulus because all over the world there has been discussions of pushing for a green recovery, meaning Australia, the U.S., people there have been pushing for prioritizing green projects as amongst the stimulus package. So I would like to hear from your expert opinion about what you think of this lack of green stimulus in our recovery package, and what do you think should be done by the government in order to correct this, or do you think there is still space for us? Do you think the government is correct in somewhat neglecting this kind of stimulus in our package?
Very good question, Patricia. Our economic managers, particularly our NEDA acting secretary Carl Chua, put it very nicely. There were certain asks by certain sectors. In particular, I'm not sure if you've heard yung Arise bill in Congress. It was asking for 1.3 trillion pesos. That's not a small amount, 1.3 trillion pesos to pump prime the economy. So our economic managers, particularly si Secretary Chua, said, that is too much naman, right? Simply because, can you imagine, our GDP is roughly 18 trillion and you're asking for 1.3 to be devoted for stimulus packages. No? Now, that being said, there are already packages being handed out by the government. Yung Bayanihan to Gilas 1, for all the criticisms, it has mitigated the impact. No? And now we are awaiting the second package, Patricia, yung Bayanihan to Gilas 1 Act, Part 2. Right? So it's a sequel to the Bayanihan to Gilas Part 1. But what it is again, it's pump priming. When I say pump priming, it's a government handing out cash to stimulate consumption. Right? When you have money, as you said, people tend to consume. When they don't have money, then they have to knock at the doors of the government. Right? But in general, I think it's a health crisis at the end of the day. Success will not be measured by all these numbers. Success will be measured by the number of lives that were spared, the number of cases that were managed well. And I am very much inspired by the countries which were able to manage their situation simply because their health system was not overstretched, right? Their nurses and their doctors were really being supported by the government. And I think that is what our health professionals was asking of the government. And the government has heard them and is now listening to them, right? So it's a health crisis. Sabi nga ni San Miguel President Ramon Ang, right? Yung pera mapapalitan. Pero yung buhay, pag nawala, that's really irreplaceable, right? So at the end of the day, I think you're right. There are different responses, but to me, it will always be measured by how well our Filipinos were spared from the infection, and hopefully those infected recover and not really be doomed really to already die. So that is my perspective on that.
Thank you very much, Attorney. I agree. It really doesn't matter which type of stimulus are we offering. What matters is the response of the people to that stimulus. Because at the end of the day, this is a tango, and the government cannot do it by itself. The government also needs the support of the people. So I guess instead of a question, I will continue my reaction by at least acknowledging, sir, that I think everybody now, my Echo Angel sisters, everybody watching now should hear really the main message from this. For me, the main message that I can hear from Attorney Ruel, which is trust the government. A lot of things have been going on, and at the end of the day, we need to learn how to trust the people who we elected to lead us, and also the people who are in the cabinet. Because actually, I've had the honor of interacting a couple of times with now ASEC na ba siya, si ASEC Carl Chua, and even before when he was down the line in NEDA, and he is a brilliant man. And I have to say we have a lot of brilliant economic managers. And I agree with what you said earlier. And in doing the tango, I think that we must do our part. Because part of my question earlier was supposed to be, what can people do now to help themselves? But I think from everything I've heard from your talk, I think that the message is to help ourselves by taking advantage of the stimulus that the government is providing, paying our taxes. People, are we paying our taxes? Because taxes are very important. And basically, letting our government do their job. So thank you very much, Attorney Ruel. This was really a very fruitful discussion po.
Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much, Ate Patricia, our beautiful future attorney as well, also in the same industry as Sir Attorney Refran. So instead of me asking questions, I prefer to read some comments of our viewers today. So this is one from Julie A. Bayans, my mom. This is what she said. Wow, galing ng speaker. Thanks, sir, for sharing your expertise about our economy amidst this pandemic. Sobrang happy si mommy ngayon.
Mama Earth.
Ang swerte ko na greet both parents ko. Thank you, sir. And also another comment from Ma'am Reina Esguera from Carousel. Thanks, Attorney Roel Refran. Very informative presentation. Very informative indeed, sir. Grabe, sobrang in awe ko ngayon. I know my sisters, and in shock pa rin ako ngayon. We are so grateful that we got to meet you virtually, and sana naman in person na po next time. And thank you po for taking the time. We wish you the best in life. So,
you din po, Attorney Roel, at walang recitation.
Patricia, good luck sa law studies. Patricia.
Yes.
Thank you, Attorney. Sobrang feeling ko mamahalin ko ng economics ngayon.
I'm here.
Salamat sa oras.
Okay, so to end our talk for today, I hope you would watch our upcoming Miss Earth 2020 events. Please do like and follow the official social media accounts of Miss Earth. I think Ate Shane also has a few words.
Yes, guys, if you wanted to be updated about the upcoming events of Miss Earth 2020 for the first ever virtual international pageant, let's support Roxy Bayans as she represents the Philippines for the upcoming Miss Earth 2020. Please subscribe on our YouTube channel, that's at Miss Earth. Follow or like us on our Facebook account, that's Miss Earth, and follow us on our Twitter and Instagram, that's at Miss Earth. And of course, there is a getting to know event for the Miss Earth delegates on September 21st. So please do watch and support Roxy as she vies to be the next Miss Earth 2020.
And also, please don't forget that starting September 22, there will be daily pre-pageant activities. So once again, you will be witnessing our beautiful Echo Angels from around the world presenting their talent and different cultural attires and many, many more. So this is something to look forward to, knowing that Miss Earth is, I think, one namumukod tanging international pageant that has pushed through against all odds, indeed proving to the world that Miss Earth is more than just beauty, more than just body, more than just face, but the overall well-being of a woman, especially her heart for the environment. And
Yes.
before I go pala, I would like to greet happy birthday to Candy Evora. She's watching right now. Happy birthday. I hope you have a special day.
Yes, can I greet also my sister? Birthday ngayon. Happy birthday, honey!
Happy birthday po, Candy and Honey. Yes, very well said words from my Eco Sisters, and thank you sa pagsingit ng support. To know more about the time and delegates assigned, please follow the official Miss Earth page. And thank you for joining us today. Actually, this is the end of our series of What Matters, and meron pa kayong aabangan. Don't be sad kasi
Yes.
meron pa kaming pasabog. I think I can't announce it yet now, pero you have to visit our page to know more about it pa. So abangan po
Yes.
natin yan. Maraming salamat and stay safe. Remember to be kind to yourself and others around you. Maraming salamat. Bye,
Bye.
everyone.
Thank you, Sir Ruel.
Thank you, Sir
Eco
Ruel.
Sisters.
Ingat, Queens.